Good evening and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, so get ready to get triggered. Good morning and welcome to the Raben Report.
I don't know what time zone you're in.
Good evening, Elliot.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, my mic's a bit hot. Just
Yeah,
turn
give me a
that
sec.
down. But my apologies. Good evening and welcome to the Raben Report's 50th recorded episode. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, as you might have heard in our intro, and with me is my expert panel, Marshall, Adam, and Daniel. How are you guys?
Excellent.
Good.
Yeah,
I think my
good.
mic's a little hot as well.
Yeah,
You want to
we
just
fix
turn
that.
that
Yeah.
down a little
You know, it's so
bit?
hard to try and get that stuff done with so many people yapping and yapping. That's
Oh,
all.
that's
okay.
the
A little
show.
passive aggressive here.
50
That's fine.
episodes in, and you tell us that now.
Yeah.
Good to know. But
This is it. We're airing all the dirty laundry
Yeah,
tonight.
exactly.
This is it.
But yeah, how are you guys?
Pretty good. It's been a rough day of essay writing, but
Yeah.
you know what? I'm going to get through it. I'm going to survive. I will survive.
I believe in you, Marshall.
I did a first for this semester, and I wrote my essay on the Go bus to downtown Toronto.
Wow.
Because in the morning, literally from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Wow.
But whatever.
I can never focus on the bus.
I would have just put my headphones in and just I already knew what I
Yeah.
had to write, so
Wow.
it's good to go. You know.
I don't have the range of motion. I'm kind of there like a T-Rex trying to type, and it's.
I was in the
it's
back
just
too,
not-
so it was pretty rough still.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah, I've had a long week and weekend of procrastinating all the work that I have to do. It's been very difficult, but
Fair.
I think that I'll be able to survive like Marshall with his strength. Other than that, I'm good, and yeah.
That's good to hear. On top of that, we've got some familiar faces. We've got Christina. Hi, Christina.
Hey.
Thank you for being here. Let me get your shot right. And we've got Hamza. Thank you, Hamza,
Hi.
for being here. There we go. So we've got some amazing guests today. Thank you for being here on our 50th episode. So to begin, as per Spirit Live, I can't even speak anymore. It's too late. To begin, as per Spirit Live rules and regulations, all opinions expressed on the show are not those of Ryerson or Ryerson faculty and are only those of the individual commentators. Viewer discretion is advised. Before we start, remember we are live on Facebook, so you can comment on our feed to have your thoughts read live on air.
Gonna share that now.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Today we've got a special episode. I really can't talk. Jeez,
It's all
guys.
good. It's all good.
Today we've got a very special episode for you all. That's right, our 50th recorded episode. Now, although we've technically had 52 episodes, one of which Adam states that Karl Marx is his idol, but
God.
that is gone. So, hence, we only have 50 recorded episodes.
Did you really need to bring that up
that-
then, man?
Yeah.
Come
It was
on.
gone. It was
Yeah,
buried,
no one,
and
no
now
one
it's
heard
back.
about it.
Well, since we're airing everything out, I thought might as well. But 50 episodes we've streamed to Facebook for you, the viewers, to enjoy. With special guests and sizzling topics, and potentially a prize, this is a show that is not to be missed. So let's start with our recap of the week. The first thing, obviously, our 50th episode. Thoughts, guys?
Just like, what a
50,
ride.
the big 5-0.
Yeah.
Right? What a big number.
That's crazy.
What a
49
large,
and 1. I'm celebrating my 49th birthday twice.
What a large sum. That's
Oh.
a big number. That's a huge
Yeah,
number.
Marshall just hit us with it.
Very impressive number.
Yeah, there's nothing much else to be said. Like, what else? 50?
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
you know, we've been here 50 times at least doing this show. And something that I think we should all be proud of is I just checked the viewership today. We've been viewed in 54 countries.
That's
Really?
pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope.
Wow.
Yeah, 54
Yeah.
countries.
Yeah, the way that the show began was that Elliot, for those of you who don't know, Elliot put out a post on a Ryerson politics group and was like, "Hey, I'm looking for panelists for a radio show that I want to do." And I decided to respond, and I did not imagine that response would get me here. and to see the sort of unprecedented growth that we've had is just really impressive.
It's been a good 50 episodes. You know, we've had a lot of viewership growth. We've had a lot of fans coming in and fans that have stuck around and like to watch the show every week.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be recognized on the street for anything, but it's actually happened.
Yeah, you know, having people come up to me when I'm, you know, socializing at school or whatever I'm doing, going, "Hey, you're the guy from that Raben report.
Yeah.
You said this, and I have a bone to pick with you." And
Yeah.
Oh shit! Did you throw down with him?
oh yeah, we threw down, buddy. We threw down.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, it's crazy though. Like even
Sometimes it's justified.
Sometimes it's justified.
even with your friends, Adam. Like I ran into you and your friends. Like I remember in our first season, and we were on the subway together, and they're like, "Wait, are you like Elliot from the Raben report?" I'm like,
Yeah,
I am.
I'm the Raben in the Raben report.
That's what I tell people.
Yeah.
You know, it's good to know that we're actually making a difference and having political discussions. We've been in hot water, but I think that means that we're doing a good job,
I agree.
right?
Now, I just want to make sure everybody else is able to hear Christina and Hamza just fine. Because I was getting a bit of issues hearing Christina, but it might just be me.
Potentially.
Is it me?
Oh,
Yeah,
she-
maybe you're a little light, but
Yeah.
Lisa, which one? She's number 2.
She's
right?
on 2. Yeah.
Here, keep going a bit.
Am I being
Oh, that sounds perfect.
There you
go.
go.
Okay, I think I was
Yeah.
just far from the mic.
Oh, my
That's
bad, my bad.
beauty.
Yeah, get close
Sorry.
and comfy.
I
you know,
don't.
Make yourself at home.
Get close.
Take
get
your
low,
coat
get
off.
low.
this is
You
your
know, just
this is
hang up your
second
hat.
home. But yeah, but moving on. Of course, my favorite, Celine Dion. Now, people would think, why is Celine Dion being brought up on the show? Well, she recently launched she has a collaboration with a company called Nu. Now, her collaboration is called Celine Nu, with a gender-neutral clothing line. Have any of you seen the ad?
I have
I
not.
think you sent us a photo.
I
maybe,
saw
but-
that she drew the ire of Ben Shapiro with
Yes.
the Daily
You
Wire.
don't really need to do much to draw the ire of Ben Shapiro.
You really don't.
Yeah.
Well, Ben Shapiro would definitely say, like, "Oh, this is distasteful. This is such identity politics." That's what he
Canada
would say.
at it again.
Oh God.
Oh, for sure.
With their
And-
leftist
This is
liberal
absolutely
propaganda.
outrageous.
no, and just
Did I
'cause-
mention my wife's a doctor?
I just want to show the video for people who haven't seen it because this is it's become a very divisive topic for a lot of people. But just so everybody knows the video, I'm just going to pull it up.
Understandably, Celine Dion is basically Canada.
Exactly.
Not much
That's what I'm
She's
saying.
Canada's foreign affairs minister.
Yeah.
So here's the video for those who don't know.
It's okay, it's okay. I'm Celine Dion.
Our children, they are not really our children,
As we are all just links in a never-ending chain.
that is life.
For us, they are everything. But in reality, we are only a fraction of their universe. We miss the past.
They dream of tomorrow.
We may thrust them forward into the future, but the course will always be theirs to choose. I can't believe they called security. I mean, oh, come on, I'm Celine Dion. I'm not spending the night in jail. Holy shit.
Guys, relax, easy. I'm Celine Dion.
Yeah, girl, and I'm Beyonce.
I'm calling my agent.
And that was the ad. So
That looks like a Super Bowl ad, man.
Yeah, it's.
I hated that.
That was very
That made me like Celine Dion less.
Yeah.
That was hard
How can
to
you say that
watch.
in this room?
Yeah, I mean,
I still like
it's,
her.
It's been a great 50 episodes, Marshall. Thanks for being here. No, but
It all came
you know,
to this.
yeah. Usually, Celine Dion stays out of politics. And again, I bring this up not just because of my affection for her, but because this really has, I guess, ticked off a lot of her fans.
Yeah. I don't know why though.
Because a lot of people, I guess, are, prefer the boys and girls wear separate clothing. I think it's okay.
Doesn't she have
I
a
think
large
it's
fan
fine.
base in Quebec though?
Yeah.
I guess that would make sense.
I would
though.
imagine so. Yeah.
Like,
She-
like, I
like
guess
she
that's what I would try to like.
I mean,
put
she
two and
comes
two
from
together, right?
from a small town in Quebec, which is very conservative, right? So you wouldn't
So it makes
expect her to
sense.
do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's turned a lot of heads. What do you guys think?
I don't really think that it makes sense to me, and I really don't see why this should affect anyone. I trust Celine Dion and her style. Really shouldn't be an issue.
I never thought I'd
for
hear you
me
put those words together
personally.
Like
I largely agree with you, Adam. I think, the outrage is silly.
The outrage is
I know
very.
the ad was silly. And I guess my only actual issue with it would be like, I wasn't able to watch the full ad. I only got like the last half of it on my phone there.
Mm-hmm.
But like it does seem to be like she's like, look at me, I am doing this great thing. I don't know. I just think it's like it's fine.
I think
It's
it
just a
is.
power
It's
play.
great for people that don't identify with the gender binary to walk into a Zara or wherever she's going to sell her clothes and be like, hey, cool, clothes that can work with me and fit me and how I feel.
I think the important thing is that when she was talking about it in an interview, she said, "I'm not telling parents what to do. I'm just giving them the option."
Yeah,
So
and I
that's
think
why-
that to really sort of walk the walk when it comes to gender inclusion is to sort of give them dignity. Like to have a nice clothing line with nice clothing is dignifying these people. So I think that I think it's cool. I don't see a problem with it. There shouldn't be a problem with it.
Turn Hamza's mic up.
Okay.
Yeah. I really, at first I was like, Celine, but I'm like, if Celine does it, then it's all good.
I think Hamza was trying to get a word in. That's
Yeah,
why I said
sounds-
that.
Hamza, what's
okay. No problem. I was just saying that this shouldn't really be a problem. Like, how do you make gendered clothes for babies? They're all just the same.
Yeah. Oh, is it just baby clothes?
Yeah,
or
it's
is it...
just baby
Oh,
clothes.
it's just baby clothes.
It's just baby clothes.
Oh yeah, especially then, like babies don't need to have gendered clothing.
I mean, since we're now calling them babies instead, apparently. So
I don't know who said that.
No, they're called toddler folk now.
toddler
folk.
All right.
The message behind it was fine. Like it's true. Babies do not wake up going, oh, like I really want to wear pink today. You know, like they're babies. But that was just a really hard commercial to watch because
yeah.
It was just uncomfortable. It wasn't funny. I don't know if it was supposed to be funny. It was just
I couldn't tell either.
And then the whole like, I'm Celine Dion. Like the first time was funny, and then,
I just wanted her to say I'm Stefan Don instead because she just sounds like a lot better.
My friend Abraham is telling us that the volume keeps cutting out
Really?
every so often.
Cutting out completely. Okay. Let's double check that.
He said it's working well now.
Okay. Well, can you just keep us updated, man?
Yeah, just keep us posted.
Yeah, it looks like it's fine on, the
From what it
actual
looks
feed.
like, it's
Just
Yeah.
monitor
fine.
then, just in case.
But yeah, let's just. I guess we'll be careful about that.
Yeah.
But hopefully it all works out. But I guess I'm not bringing up Celine Dion on this show anymore. So let's move on to our next topic.
No.
Sorry, Adam. Would you be able to just monitor the comments? This phone's not updating with the
gotcha.
the new comments.
Here at the Raben Report, we can never have a show without technical difficulties. Thanks for choosing us for 50 years.
I think it's ridiculous to try to strive for perfection. So there you go.
Yeah,
we do our best. But I kid, of course. But let's move on to our next topic, which is the cannabis conference that you, Daniel, went to.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot we were
yeah,
going to talk about that. Thank
So
you.
tell us about what happened.
Oh, it was very interesting. A friend of mine who's on my executive team for POGSA, Keon, he invited me to come to this, but it's hosted by the RCGA, which is, I believe, the Ryerson Commerce and Governance Association. And yeah, they had a bunch of it was a full day conference with like food and stuff, and just had like talking people like speakers, like lots of speakers coming, and then they had like a legal panel like at the end of it too, just to talk about the laws and stuff. And it was just very, very informative and stuff like that. Like we were able to speak with an organization, like the CEO of an organization called Leaf Forward, and they're basically just help little guys get into the cannabis industry and stuff. So like when and entrepreneurs like that are starting their small businesses, they give them the networking and the capital, and because they invest like maybe like 5 or 10% of the company to like help them and strive in the cannabis industry, because it's $1 billion industry, so like everyone's gonna try to put their hand in there to make money in it.
And did they touch on the fact that Ryerson's offering the courses now about?
Yeah, because we had a Ryerson
Zen 420.
Yeah,
That's the name of the course.
We had what was it? A Ryerson professor. He's like a conservative Ryerson professor explaining it, and he was just talking about like all the regulations that we have are just and how bullshit they are, and it's like, yeah, it's just very interesting. And there was a CEO over there that was just talking about like how the industry is going to be shaping into the new industry come next year when edibles, concentrates are going to be legalized. So. Yeah, it's just very interesting, and just like for me, I'm not that business savvy, but it was just very interesting, like being introduced to that, and especially with something that I've struggled with before. So like for me, like switching from being a complete total stoner to like being able to enjoy it is very important for me, and I think the conference actually helped me like have a more mature understanding of the substance. So
that's good to hear. You know, understanding something like marijuana, which a lot of people have a very cursory understanding of, but not a very
so much
deep
stigma,
understanding of, is important.
Yeah, like it's not like they're talking about strains and like sativa and hybrid or like personal.
Because that's what everybody seems to be extremely well versed in.
Yeah.
Is all of the different strains, but nobody seems to be very well versed in anything else.
Exactly.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you had a good time. And now let's move on to our final.
I just wish they brought some samples. That's.
Let's move on to our final weekly update, which is some complications with Brexit. Now, I know, Marshall, you brought that up when we were having our discussion on this show, on the topics for the show. So why don't you tell us about it? Start us off.
And how deep should I go here? Like, should I give like a whole background on Brexit, or just the more recent developments?
Let's have a 5-minute discussion.
Sure.
Start your engines.
So, for those who haven't been following Brexit, I know that was big news back in, let's say summer of 2016, but it might have, faded out of your memory by now. Essentially, the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union being a regional government-esque body. They are a trade organization and a currency union, and they also pass laws to a degree, which I'll get into in a second, and essentially just administer the entirety of Europe. Britain voted to leave in a referendum, and that hasn't, the leave hasn't actually happened yet because it's a very long and complicated process, because within Brexit there was a free trade agreement, a free movement agreement, meaning if you're in Europe, you can go to any country in the European Union with no hassle.
They just have to renegotiate literally everything, all the red tape then.
And so, now, what was his name? The Prime Minister before Theresa May?
David Cameron.
Yeah, so David Cameron stepped down in the wake of that because he was very pro-Remain, remaining in the EU, that is. And Theresa May took over as Prime Minister. Now, she's a Brexiteer, let's say. She's pro-leave, a leaver. But she's not like a hard leaver. She wants to leave the EU while remaining in many deals.
Yeah.
A lot of pro-leave people, a lot of leavers are no-deal leavers.
But see, like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, though.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like,
yeah, so essentially that's it. And now the Brexit secretary just resigned, and without him, it's looking like it will very likely be a no-deal Brexit. He was the guy in charge of arranging these deals with the European Union.
That wasn't Nigel Farage, no?
No.
He has a seat though on the EU, right?
He's a member of the European Parliament.
Yeah, that's good.
And so the guy in charge of the deal making has resigned, and now it's looking like by the time we reach March, which is when Brexit will officially happen, that there's not going to be a deal, which will be an interesting situation for Britain.
So by deal, that means it will not leave?
No, they will leave. They just will not have any arrangements.
Like they won't have like a free trade agreement. Like
they wanted to
go into
leave
complete
the union
isolation
while remaining in some sort of deal.
I'm so sad with Brexit, not because I'm some sort of EU globalist, whatever, I do like the EU. It was great to sort of, when I was with my mom in Germany, kind of drive and be like, oh, hey, we're in Poland now. It's great. But regardless, there was so much misinformation in the Brexit campaign. The Nigel Farage was kind of like, oh, yeah, all this money is going to go into the NHS. And then they realized there isn't much money in leaving the EU. And then it was just now, people don't really know what they voted for. And I don't want to be the kind of person that's like the UK deserves a second vote. But I think that the conversation should be had on a second vote where people are now more educated at the implications that leaving the EU will cause. Everybody's calling it the series finale of the UK, and I'm trying to see what
Downton Abbey EU edition.
I'm trying to see what will come from that.
I guess the only thing we can do is wait and see, really.
Yeah.
But let's move on to our first main topic, which is the Brazilian election. So Brazilians cast their ballots on October 7th, with the final results being unveiled on October 28th. After a prolonged period of upheaval that included the impeachment of a former president, a devastating recession, and revelations of a massive corruption among the country's business and political elite, the winner will inherit an ailing economy that is grappling with mounting debt, slow growth, and high unemployment, according to Bloomberg News. The newly elected president, Jair
Jair Bolsonaro.
There you go.
That is
Duolingo's
described.
working, eh? There you go.
He is described as far right and was officially elected in the second round of voting, as the first round did not have a candidate winning at least 50% of the vote. There have been many true and fake news articles about Bolsonaro, so let's break it down. First question: who is he? Let's get down to his past, his political history. Let's talk about
Do
him.
you mind if I take a stab at that, just a little bit?
Go ahead.
From what I've gathered, he was in the army, I believe, when when Brazil was still under dictatorship rule, and he once Brazil switched into a democratic system, he basically ran on a very conservative platform and stuff like that, and he's been doing that for almost 25 years, something like that, right? And I think we just see this massive wave of right-wing populism all over the planet right now, and he's a stepping stone. If I were gonna say if we look at the history, we would see Trump getting elected, we would see Macron getting elected. No, is he ready? I guess
He's a centrist.
Yeah.
Well, he's like the definition of centrism.
Oh, okay, so then it would be Trump then, and the Duarte or whatever.
Duarte, the Austrian prime minister.
Victor Orban.
Yeah.
Him.
Well, Orban's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Though. The Czech.
He's also pretty.
I can't remember what they call their leader, but the
Yeah.
Czech
The
guy.
prime minister of Israel, the prime minister of Sweden.
Matteo Salvini.
It's just very interesting though, because you see right-wing populism happening now in underdeveloped countries. So that's the trend was that we only saw them in Europe, right? So it's very interesting seeing that the Philippines and Brazil can try to take a stance on this. But most people know him now just because of all the controversial stuff that he said, and unfortunately the fake news that happens to him too. But I'm not as familiar with that. I think for this show, Marshall's going to be pretty knowledgeable on this. So I don't know did I miss anything about the history?
No,
of him?
I mean essentially that sums it up. He was a military guy, and then he was a governor of Rio. I want to say.
Yeah, that's where he's at.
Yeah.
It was Rio, right?
Yeah, it was Rio.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
He's, I think he has German ancestry. I think his grandparents were German immigrants.
yeah, he's German and Italian.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so he's now the president-elect. He will be taking office next year, I believe. I believe it's the beginning of next year, and it's been big. A lot of people have a lot of support for Bolsonaro, and a lot of people have a lot of
Disgust for him.
for him, anger for him, fear in a lot of ways. And this election was interesting because something that it's a different language in Brazil. They speak Portuguese, and most people here in Canada don't speak Portuguese. Most people in the U.S. do not speak Portuguese. And so that adds a big kind of layer of complication.
Portuguese.
Yes, kind of a layer of complication to the whole scenario. Venezuela and Brazil, very good friends for a long time. Very socialist governments that worked together for a long time. Brazil has had socialist governments basically right through since the 80s. And same with Venezuela. I'm not sure how long they've had socialist governments, but
for a while,
for many decades, I'm
Yeah.
going to say. And so a lot of the news coming out about Bolsonaro was coming from Venezuela. And it's interesting because Venezuela was very against Bolsonaro. They don't like that he was pro-America. They don't like that he was pro-free markets to a degree. And they don't like how much he hated socialism and Marxism. And so there's a lot of reports coming out from Venezuela translated into English, kind of like Russia Today. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But a Venezuelan version of it.
Okay.
Are you all familiar with Russia Today, RT?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so RT, obviously,
They post some
big,
very
big
controversial
propaganda
episodes
machine.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And now this España news network, I think it's called, something like that, was almost the RT of South America. And so a lot of things came out about Bolsonaro. That's not to say...
I'd like to thank you on the proper pronunciation, too.
Oh,
Good job.
yeah,
Good
you're
job.
very welcome. That's not to say that there's no faults, and that's not to say that he's a good guy even, but I think it's very important to keep in mind that when things are in a different language and you're not translating things yourself, you're not looking right at the primary source, you can, somebody could be translating it completely wrong or somewhat wrong, just enough to tip the meaning of what's going on. And that's what I'll say on that for
One thing like I've noticed also is like I wouldn't call it a stereotype or anything like that, but it's a trend among like Latino people and in South America to use WhatsApp religiously. Like that's their Facebook, like that's their main thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and they
It's
actually
their main form of communication.
Exactly. That's
how
their
my
main.
dad stays in touch with everyone.
That's how I stay in touch with my brother who's in San Diego. Like, and that's how like with my family, like we have our family group chat and stuff. But like apparently like Brazilian families like with their group chats and stuff like that, that was the main way of that people got their information. For the Brazilian election. And also there was a common trend that like lots of fake news was being spread through these WhatsApps by people creating these massive groups of people of political groups. Like I'm talking groups with like hundreds of people in them, and like people are like hackers are like just trying to like spread all of these fake news and stuff like that. So it's like it's very concerning and stuff like that. It's like
it is concerning, yeah.
So then, there have been reports that he will, this is a specific topic about Bolsonaro, there have been reports that he will destroy the Amazon rainforest.
Yeah, I was just reading up on
Is
that.
this true?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me, can I start with Christina?
Yeah. All right.
She's ready.
Yeah. All right.
So I'll talk from like what I do know, and I know now that Marshall made that comment about the translation, I don't want to say anything that I don't know, I could be wrong, but I know that there's been he's said some controversial things about the indigenous lands in the Amazon, and has made comments about how wiping those out is like a potential for industry, it's a potential for money, and that with his campaign he was destined to diminish any indigenous reserves. And one thing is that a lot of indigenous practices are like some of the best ways to maintain the rainforest. Like their practices are
like they help with the ecosystem.
Yeah, so the things that they're doing are not.
They don't destroy.
They don't
work
destroy
alongside.
things. Yeah, they work alongside. They work with their surroundings rather than destroying things, and it's a really good way to maintain, basically just the health of the Amazon. And when you view those things as something that's a potential for money or something that needs to be erased, that's going to lead to it's going to ruin the rainforest. Like, and it's not to say that there aren't other aspects that come into play with like the maintenance of the rainforest, but I just mean that's like a very big aspect of why it is the way that it is and why it still stands today in good condition. So wiping that out is a big it'll be damaging.
Yeah, well, because humans, we don't have the technology to properly recreate an ecosystem yet, right?
No.
So like once something's destroyed, it's gone for good. Like maybe that technology will be created in the future, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. So in the meantime, we need to protect these environmental stuff.
I agree. Adam's dying to get a word in.
Go ahead, get in there, buddy.
I'm gonna let Hamza go. I've been here 50 times. Like I can wait.
No, I've
couple
heard
minutes.
some very conflicting things because what I do is I take Portuguese news and I translate them in English. That's the best way I can get authentic news. So what has been happening is there have been some studies confirmed by international watchdogs that saying that under Bolsonaro and by mathematical models on his policies that deforestation will increase by 300%. So that's where they're basing all of this from. One of the main things that he did is what people are so shocked by is that he made, I think it's the Ministry of Environment, subservient to the Ministry of Agriculture.
Yeah, I heard that.
So
I was just reading an article on it. So
yeah, so that's the one thing he has done. But I have heard speeches of him that he does not want to own the Amazon. That's, I think, a direct quote from him is like, the Amazon is not ours. He wants to open it up for business, and he has floated the idea of indigenous people being open to sell their land voluntarily.
You know, sorry, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. You know, I find myself hearing all of this and having this conversation, especially in this room, and I think back to Trump in his early days, where it's like, oh, but this platform kind of looks like this. Oh, but he said this in a speech. Oh, but he said this 20 years ago. Oh, but he did this.
Yeah.
And I not reluctantly, I regret it now, but in the time I gave him the benefit of the doubt in the early stages. I don't want to make the same mistake with Bolsonaro. He to me looks very dangerous.
Yeah, you're pretty right about that. Like,
I think he looks very, very dangerous. We've seen it in action now with Trump for the last 2 years. And I think that, you know, I worry for so many of the different minorities, both you know, ethnic minorities and other, I can't speak. Just different sort of repressed groups traditionally, and both in South America and in Brazil.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like xenophobia between
xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia.
Yeah.
It's floating around.
But like the divide is from like where his like delegate is, like in Rio, and then everyone else that's on the northeast and stuff like that, who looks more African and more black, so to speak, or more colorized, I guess.
I'll say two things. Sorry.
No, let's go ahead.
I'll say two things before I hand it back off to everybody else. But one thing about how I feel about him, the other thing about the Amazons. So the first thing is that I followed Haddad's campaign, his sort of opponent. I've got a friend that lives in Brazil that was very pro-Haddad, and I was just sort of getting news that way. And I looked at a graph of the wealth in Brazil and how wealthy people were and how people voted. And it was almost split in half. Like 98% of those considered poor or impoverished voted for Haddad, and those above the poverty line all voted for Bolsonaro. So to see...
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's almost like 50-50. And that really scares me to see how, Bolsonaro sort of reignited the middle class base to kind of be their champion, much like what Trump did in the Midwest. So I worry about him, and I don't like him. I don't like him. I worry about him, and I think he's dangerous. And I don't think that I cannot give him the benefit of the doubt for anything. I'm worried, just generally.
So you're worried about basically any move
I'm worried about any move he makes. I'm worried about whatever cabinet he assembles. I'm worried about anything he says, because he can say one thing and do another. That's what these populists do. They go behind closed doors without press. They claim everything's fake news, and they make policy. Again, I'm generalizing.
But he won by a large margin.
He won by a lot.
So
it was
his electorate
it was 10%, wasn't it?
That's big in a South American election.
Sorry,
I've got one more thing. I've got one more thing. On the Amazon, so I was on Twitter the night of the Brazilian election, and this guy was quote tweeted his win, and they were like, "Say goodbye to the Amazons." First of all, the Amazon has just been like, the trees have been taken down in the Amazons for decades at alarming rates. Destructions of ecosystems, destructions of the indigenous people's ways of life, mudslides, dust bowls, all of the effects of deforestation have just been rampant in the Amazon. The only thing is that it's so freaking big that it just doesn't matter how many trees you take down, because it's just so large, and so much of it is in Brazil. So it looks intact, but it really isn't.
So
like if we were able to see,
are you saying in a sense that it's never going to be destroyed, or are you
no,
just saying
it's going to be
like
destroyed, and people are going to keep destroying it, but it looks fine. All looks calm on the ground. But I read into Bolsonaro, and I told this to Marshall already. So everybody was like, say goodbye to the Amazon. So what happened was that Brazil signed the Paris Accords under their former prime minister or president. I don't know how it works in Brazil.
President.
Yeah. Thank you.
They use all the same terminology as the U.S. They used to be obsessed with the U.S.
Okay, so
they're the United States of Brazil.
They're president. And the conditions for them signing the Paris Accords was that they have to leave the Amazons alone, essentially. And to Bolsonaro, that looked like they're surrendering their sovereignty, which on paper, maybe, because so much of the Amazons is Brazilian territory. So it's like we're giving up our land, but not, in my opinion, because the Amazon sort of belongs to the world. It belongs to everyone. That's my own personal opinion. So to Humza's point, I've read that, deforestation will go up 300%. I think it will go up much higher, and I worry about the indigenous peoples, like sort of deep in the Amazon, don't really have much contact with mainlanders, with settlers, with all that, and I worry. I'm just, in conclusion, I'm generally worried.
So I want to piggyback off of your fear of any move that Bolsonaro makes by asking, what are your thoughts on him moving the Brazilian embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv?
Oh, don't get me started.
I mean, I think it's this. I feel the same way about that as I feel about Trump doing it. A completely unnecessary move that I don't think really means anything.
It'll just create more bloodshed.
Yeah,
there'll be more
I think
protests and more death.
Like, I get it. I get why it's being done, but I think it's a completely inappropriate time to do it at, and it really means very little practically. I understand the important symbolism behind it, but from a practical perspective, it really means very little. I think it's a fine move in terms of the goal, but in terms of what it's actually going to do, it's just not appropriate. I would say.
I kind of feel it's like in a small way emulating Trump.
Yes, I think so too.
Bolsonaro's first state visit as president will be to Israel. Same thing that Trump did. Again, I don't agree with the move. I don't think Jerusalem is Israel's capital.
Whoa, hot take.
Hot take.
And I don't think that he should do it. But again, this is populism. They voted for him. This is what they're gonna get. Like he is South America's Trump. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it also makes less sense in in Brazil. In America, in the US, Trump doing it made a lot more sense politically.
Yeah.
Strictly politically. There's a big Jewish population in the US that doesn't exist in Brazil.
There's not much of a connection between Israel and Brazil, right?
No,
So
but
on a surveillance level, there is.
There's an electorate for it. There is a group. It's not just Jewish people. It's not what you think.
Yeah.
It's military people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of military people in Brazil. You got to keep in mind, I don't know what their population is, but it's massive. They're like the 5th largest country in the world.
And they have conscription, do they not?
They do. And so there's a lot, and like not everybody's going to be like a military person, regardless of whether they serve their military time. There are people who are actual military people who like dedicate their lives to the military, and they support the military big time. And those are the people who are for the move because they all love Israel because of Brazil and Israel's connection.
And I think that's another thing that Adam should be worried about, because I wasn't sure if he said he's worried or not about Brazil. I don't know.
I am worried about Brazil. I am.
But it's like, yeah, because like just we saw like Bolsonaro, he's he was he used to be part of the army, so like what if he's like an example, if he moves his cabinet, like is he going to have more people that used to be in the military being held with these very high positions of power? Or are they going to have someone who's militant that's going to be the minister for this new ministry that he just amalgamated? There's just so much stuff that can happen now.
I read earlier today that again it could be a lost in translation thing.
And I'm not trying to say that everying said about Bolsonaro is fake. It's just like it's something to keep in mind.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But I did read today that his foreign affairs minister thinks that climate change is a Marxist plot.
Yes, that is true.
Okay, so that's very concerning.
Yeah, and
me.
so as far as the Amazon situation goes, I'm in complete agreement with you and complete agreement with Christina there. I think so what he said, what the kind of actual proposition from Bolsonaro is not to actually get rid of the Amazon, but functionally it may be the same. He does want to open it up to development.
Yeah. Which is just
so it's
recipe
it's
for
kind of
disaster.
like
Unnecessary.
Yeah, and so I completely disagree with him on that, and I also don't want to make myself out to be like a Bolsonaro supporter because I'm not. I do think that like there are certainly aspects of his campaign that I really admired, and I do think that he is attacked unfairly in certain aspects for sure. But I'm not in any regard a Bolsonaro supporter, and at the same time I'm also not Brazilian, and I think I have very little kind of I don't call myself a supporter of politicians in in general that are outside my country or outside my area of concern.
Right.
I have called myself a Trump supporter in the past, but I think I
Not
would
anymore?
not use that. I wouldn't use that terminology anymore. I think calling yourself a supporter of somebody
Is generally you're pro most of their things.
Yeah,
Like
and
most
I
of their
don't
moves?
like, because I never thought about it like this before. I was kind of using that term thoughtlessly. But when you call yourself a supporter, I think there's a very significant implication to that term.
It's like a very
And so-
pigeonholing
That means you're gonna
label.
have to defend their views and their policy
Yeah.
decisions and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and so while there may be people who I admire for certain things, and like, I would not want Bolsonaro to be our prime minister. That's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
give that away. Trump, I might want him to be our prime minister, maybe. I don't know, but Bolsonaro, no.
I think Bolsonaro is pretty accurate for what the Brazil population is, because I think most people did vote for him because of his tough on crime stance.
And that is what I admire.
But see, like that, those are I think that those are the type of issues that Brazil should be focusing on right now. Like they shouldn't be prioritizing this business move for the
Brazil
Amazon.
has, I think, more than 40,000 homicides a year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's so many other issues besides trying to
Right.
build in
Yeah.
the Amazon and
But
uh,
you know what ridiculous
moving
is?
their embassy. There's no point. There's other things that need to be
Yeah,
focused
dealt
on.
with.
So,
Yeah.
so Christina, would you say that like the two things he did, good or bad, and if good, are you just saying that the timing is wrong,
The timing is wrong, as in
as in doing them right now, like because you said they have other things to do?
I don't see the embassy thing is like, to me, like what Marshall was saying. I don't see the point. It's just like, it's almost like a move for, I don't know, maybe you get attention from it. You get
it's just
people
for the
talking.
headlines. Yeah.
It's a very political move.
Yeah.
Do you think he's doing it like? What is the political motive, like to get on Trump's good side, to
yeah.
get on
Well,
Israel's good side?
One thing you hear a lot is that there's a lot of copycatting that happens, like Brazil copying the U.S. and a lot of the things that they do. There's this like huge idolization of the U.S. and the way that they function, and even Trump right now. But it seems like an unnecessary move. I don't think that, like, if it happened, like, to me, I'm obviously indifferent about it. That doesn't really affect me at all, that embassy move. It doesn't, I don't think about it. But the Amazon one, I think at no point does that need to, well, because to me, I have this idea of maintaining the Amazon forever, and it's one of those last standing things that we still have. But I mean, at some point it's going to happen, but I don't want it to, so I'm not even like thinking about it.
Yeah, I
As a
completely agree
potential-
there.
yeah.
I think it needs to be preserved.
Yeah.
So then, what will Bolsonaro do to fix his country, or will he even fix it? You know, again, what that I mentioned, they have they're grappling with a mounting debt, slow growth, and high unemployment. What is he going to do? Is he going to do anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that debt and unemployment are going to be secondary here, and crime is going to be the main issue.
Yes.
As far as I'm aware, that is what got him elected.
Sorry, there's a
was-
guy waving to us out the window, so you just caught me. Yeah, he's standing there.
But,
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
crime was his main thing here, and I wrote down a couple Bolsonaro quotes, and this is mainly for the viewers, not for the panelists here, because you might already have heard these or seen these. But these are directly translated by a Brazilian person, so I actually triple checked, I triple referenced just to make sure these are
Good
correct. And so this just kind of is to give you an idea of what his stance is when it comes to the crime situation in Brazil. His first quote here is, "Did the police kill 60,000 crooks?
God.
Really? I wish they had killed 200,000."
Yeah,
Next-
I remember you said that.
Next quote is, "Sooner or later the police will strike, and it won't be because of low wages. Policemen have wives and families. They're just like any other citizen. If they shoot a crook, they're sent to jail. If they do not, they're sent to their graves." And I really like that quote personally.
Exactly.
That's strong.
I-
That's very strong.
they're very
message there.
strong and very true, I would say. And then this one is just honestly kind of funny, but I don't know, maybe concerning. It says, "Some say killers need more culture. What they really need is a beating and harsh punishment." And
I don't know how that's funny.
when it comes to killers, you know, people who kill people, a beating and a harsh punishment, I don't have any sympathy there. That doesn't elicit any like concern for the killers.
Yeah.
I just think it's kind of a a silly thing to say, and on a
See, but this is so much deja vu of Trump for me, where he was, at his rallies, and he's like, put your right hand on your heart, he did his whole like I will vote for Donald Trump in November, blah blah blah. Or if you see a protester throw a tomato at them, I'll pay your bail, I'll pay your fee. Where he's like, we got to get the rapists and drug addicts out. Like, this is so much Trump deja vu that like. It's almost like I'm living it again. I'm living the earlier episodes of our show again, and I can't laugh. I can't I can't see these quotes in any way other than red flags.
So I see what you mean, and I think that a lot of the things Trump said are actually would be more concerning to me than the Bolsonaro quotes.
Yeah.
Throwing a tomato at a protester, that's something that I would generally say you should not do. And I don't want people to be throwing tomatoes at protesters. It's really hard for me to see to get any kind of concern from a quote like the ones I read, because I just simply
Did
do
you
not.
talk about the rape one or no?
I haven't, but I will get to it. I simply just don't have any sympathy for these criminals.
Yeah.
And so when it's applied to criminals, I think it's a lot easier to find humor in a quote
I think the main point is the reality in Brazil at the local level is very much different than the U.S. or Canada or anything in the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, their crime rate is absolutely insane, and it's tragic.
Just the poverty that you see, and I think that's also why Bolsonaro got a lot of support, because the favelas that are
But he got no support from poor people.
That's that's the thing though. Like,
Is that the election results or is that the polls?
No, that's election results.
that's what you told us, right?
Yeah, it was like 98% of those that are under the poverty line voted for Haddad, his opponent.
See, like, I think like that's like I think they just appeal to two different demographics, right?
I'll find it.
But like, that's if they're gonna actually, if they need to target certain like problems with Brazil, they need to target the poverty at first and stuff like that. Like,
I mean, Haddad would have been disastrous because he would have released Maduro. You know, the guy that
the corruption.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was one of his plans he was going to do.
Wow.
He was pro. I can't remember the name, but there was this big corruption scandal in Brazil that robbed the country out of billions of
Lula.
dollars. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The female, the lady. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the last president. Yeah.
And I mean, I think when it comes to a situation like they have in Brazil, and we often, as people who are not Brazilians, apply our own kind of standards to Brazil. And I don't think that's quite fair when we have people saying, this rhetoric is extreme. A lot of his rhetoric is extreme in something I would say is a negative way. But his rhetoric around crime, I would say when you're in Brazil, the rhetoric is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Would that rhetoric be appropriate here? No.
No.
But in a place like Brazil, where it's almost a war zone in a lot of places, I think that's absolutely, he's going about things the right way there. And I really do want people in Brazil to stop suffering under these, under the crime that's going on. And
you feel that he's going to change that?
Who knows? I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think that he's going about it the right way. As
Fair.
far as crime goes, as far as other things go, not necessarily, but as far as crime goes, yes, absolutely.
So, yeah, did somebody want to?
I want to jump in with a little thing. You guys heard about the universities raid? A lot of people were talking about it, and then nobody started reporting on it.
Sorry, say it again.
Sorry, can I just? I found the quote, like the headline, the fact. Bolsonaro won 977 of the richest cities, and Haddad in the 98% of the poor cities. Among the thousand municipalities with, this is directly from Google Translate, so forgive my whatever, with the highest HDI of the country, Bolsonaro won 967 and Haddad won 33. In the 1,000 less developed cities, Haddad won 975 and Bolsonaro 25.
Wow.
Wow.
So it was very split 50-50.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
I didn't catch the word that you used there. What was it?
Oh, I was talking about, did you guys hear about the raid on Brazilian universities that a lot of people are reporting?
Yes. I did, yeah.
Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, so a lot of people reported as, even though Bolsonaro wasn't even in office at that time, that they're raiding universities by the police because they are exercising their right to freedom of speech, which was hilarious to me because they're applying the U.S. Constitution to Brazil.
Yeah, he's still not in office. Just to be clear, but
that doesn't make it right.
Oh no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying it makes it right. Yeah.
So what actually happened is the courts actually had an ordered against all, I think, 13 Brazilian universities Because when you're a state institution, like all Brazilian universities are, you are not allowed to engage in political propaganda.
Yeah.
Of any
Yeah.
kind, yeah.
And so what was the propaganda?
So they stuck up a flyer called, I think it had the letters LA Now, which meant not him in Brazilian.
Yeah.
And they, after the courts ordered them, they removed the flag and then they put the banner back, I guess a week later or something. And then the police had to go and disrupt all and confiscate all the material. And what was funny is that no English sources would show all the material. And one of my Brazilian friends who had escaped Brazil because of poverty, and he actually got stabbed on the streets. He showed me all the links to the universities, and they were freely promoting Marxist and socialist propaganda and calling Bolsonaro straight up fascist. That's what the police seized.
The problem is that there's not allowed to be university sponsored political advertisements.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's not a law that I would agree with.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not down with left-wing politics, it's going to be difficult to be on a university campus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
take that here.
Yeah, you gotta just.
No, like that. That's the nature of a university campus. They're always left-wing.
Mm-hmm. But I think most of the universities here are private. They're not state universities, right?
Here?
Yeah.
No, our universities are public.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that if you're gonna call out, if all left-wing politics on university campuses are propaganda, then you're just calling left-wing politics propaganda, which is, I think, a very gross generalization. And I think
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Damn.
I just that's how I see it, and it doesn't make it right to go in and do these raids, and these raids, it's not a coincidence that on the election night of a right-wing leader, left-wing universities have a raid. It's not like, oh well, they broke the law. It's like it's like how they got Al Capone on tax evasion. I've used that so many times on this show.
9 out of 11 Supreme Court judges were actually elected by the Workers' Party and not the Social Democrats. So they were actually pro-Haddad.
Really?
Yeah, they were elected by his
That's
party.
That's going to be like a pretty strong check and balance then for him then.
Yeah, Bolsonaro didn't order that. Bolsonaro had nothing to do with that. It was all the courts.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. I don't know. The South American politics are so tricky. I have extended family in Peru, Venezuela, and Argentina, and South American politics are on a whole other level.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's a whole other ball game.
It's literally just a systematic, I hate using the word, but oppression of the American institutions intervening into these countries and stuff like that.
Oh,
it's happened to every single goddamn country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's American meddling.
And there's no
the legacy.
And it literally just you literally just chopped off half of their foot, of their leg to do that, and then they're trying to recover and trying to create this stuff. It just made it so much harder for them to actually improve their country and develop their nation.
So what I would say on that issue of the universities is if there's a law that says, let's say, universities are not, state-funded universities are not allowed to use taxpayer money to fund partisan political messages, fine. I mean, I think that's a fair law. If the students want to do something, then totally cool, they can do that. I don't think raiding the universities is the answer there. I would imagine that you would have to do some sort of warning and
they actually went against a previous court injunction. That's what I told.
So there was a warning.
Yes, there was a warning. They relented and they put up the banner, I think, 2 weeks later.
I see. So in that situations, I wouldn't still recommend a police raid. I would say that if they are breaking and I think that's a reasonable law, assuming that it's the way I'm interpreting it correctly, state money funding partisan political issues, I don't think that should be happening. I would say a police raid is not the way to go about it. I would say more like defunding the university if they continue to break the law, especially if it's constitutional law, then that's fair. But police. But I suppose that is the nature of Brazil in a lot of ways, is that you don't mess around with defunding and things. It's kind of shoot first, ask questions later in a lot of situations.
Yeah, no, Toronto had its 90th homicide of the year this morning.
Yeah,
and it was record breaking for Toronto. But if you go to anywhere in South America, 90 homicides is not a lot. And I don't think Bolsonaro is their guy to solve crime. I'm not sure Haddad was either, but I don't think right-wing populism is the solution to crime. I don't think, ruling with a more authoritarian hand is a solution to crime. And I'm still worried, regardless of the contrast in homicides.
Like, I think technically crime will go down, and they're going to do their research to show that happening.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, like, the result of the attack on crime is just going to create a police state.
Yeah.
And that's the problem,
Well, I mean, realistically, same thing with Brexit. We're going to have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
But to move on to our next topic of conversation, our main topic, which is the Ontario sex ed curriculum. Back in September, following the induction of the new PC government in June, the newly implemented sex ed curriculum by the previous Liberal government was dropped and replaced with the previous 1998 version, while the Ford government planned
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad that you mentioned that it was the 1998 version.
Yeah.
What year is it again?
While the Ford government planned to have consultations with parents about what they would like in a new sex ed curriculum. This has severely divided parents. The old curriculum doesn't mention gender identity, something that has become even more heated due to this week's Ontario PC convention. There, former PC party leader candidate Tanya Granick-Allen proposed the party scrap gender identity from teachings. According to the resolution, it stated that gender identity is, and I quote, a highly controversial, unscientific, liberal ideology, and as such, that an Ontario PC government will remove the teaching and promotion of gender identity theory from Ontario schools and its curriculum. Again, the subject has been highly contentious, but finally the Raben report will be taking a stab at it. Christina, I'm going to start with you because I know that you're very well informed on the subject and have been very passionate about it. So let's start with the basics. What are the differences between the new and the old curriculums?
So despite what a lot of people say, there are still some similarities. Gender identity isn't talked about in the same way that we talk about it now, but it is, I think, maybe mentioned, but obviously not gone. They haven't gone into depth with it in the old curriculum. The new curriculum basically just so there's more conversation about gender identity, the different sexualities, a higher or more concentration on the internet and the things that and the way that internet now plays with sexuality. There's also, I'm trying to think of exactly what's different. I know that, there's also, it's just like sexual health, so ways to protect yourself. The old curriculum focuses more on heterosexual relationships and how to protect yourself in those. Less focus on other forms of relationships. And one other thing, and I know one big thing is the old curriculum talks about abstinence as a very like
a form of contraception.
A form of contraception, and that being a very healthy, favorable option. Whereas
that ain't it.
Yeah, whereas now the curriculum just says abstinence is an option.
It's not the only option.
Not the only option.
So then, obviously, I would assume that your thought is that removing the new plan to conduct consultations was not the right move? Or do you think, because the question, obviously, is it the right move? What do you think?
I don't think it was the right move. Just because we do need an updated version of the sex ed curriculum, and the most up-to-date one is 2015, and things have even changed since then. So I would say it would have been better to stick to the curriculum and then maybe work on things for a new school year or new semester, whatever. I just think totally wiping it out is dangerous because there's a lot more that needs to be talked about now when it comes to sex. And the 1998 curriculum is, how many years ago is that? 20 years ago?
20 years.
Yeah. That's insane. That's 20 years ago. You shouldn't be learning about sex the way that it was 20 years ago because it's totally different now. There's different aspects to sexuality now, and 20 years is a long time. We were born in 97. I think most of us were, at least.
I also
was
just think I also just think it's just disrespectful that the conservative government did that and like tried to like very politicize the gender identity thing, because I think even if like left-wing people weren't necessarily supportive of trans people and gender identity and gender fluidity and all this mumbo jumbo, I'm just gonna say it like that in no disrespectful way.
I think that is a little disrespectful.
Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, I'm completely in support of that stuff. It's like it doesn't make any sense. Like, there's just so many like topics that are gonna happen in, like, if like the kids need to be educated on that. Like,
so I wanna ask then, what would you say to parents who, again, just playing devil's advocate?
Yeah.
What would you say to parents who say, well, we had the 1998 curriculum, why couldn't we just wait till the Ford government implemented a new one? Right?
Well,
Because
but because they politicize it though for that particular reason, because like lots of conservative people or people that are like-minded to some degree, they don't like they just frankly disagree with gender identity and stuff like that, and I just think it's wrong.
If I might interject for a second, I think the main point of contention was that it was written up by a Liberal MP who was, I think, also a convicted pedophile.
He wasn't an MP, but he was a pedophile. Yes.
All right.
what does this have to do with the curriculum?
Well, that's
He
the guy
helped
who wrote
create
it.
He helped create it.
I don't
the
know.
new curriculum.
I don't think I can't.
the
I can't imagine
2015
it to
one.
be so contentious if this is the first I'm hearing of it.
And I
Really, it
also
was all
don't-
over
I don't.
Yeah, I saw it all over the place.
I also have an issue with if you look through this curriculum, pedophilia has nothing to. There's no.
Mention of it. Yeah.
No, it's just. You're not.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't know. And there's this misconception.
But they're not
that
advocating
it's
for
like,
that.
Yeah.
No, I know, but there's a lot of misconception that there's this like over sexualization of children now, and like the curriculum just like pushes sexuality and gender on them, which I think is a misconception. We're raised surrounded by like I mean, at least for me personally, and like this is something that's changed, but I was raised as a girl, and that was one of the most important things to me was understanding being a girl, and like gender has always been relevant. I mean, maybe not when I was a baby, because I was a baby, but I mean, my whole life, gender has been something that you're surrounded by it, I mean, there's not really a binary anymore, but our world is kind of structured.
I
binary.
agree, and so I mean I can kind of have a middle point opinion when it comes to what Hamza brought up there. The guy being a pedophile, I think that doesn't mean that you have to throw away what he wrote. I think that the Liberals, from a political perspective, from a perspective of optics, handled it very poorly, because when the individual was convicted, I really think it should have been addressed with respect to the curriculum. I don't think that means they have to just get rid of it. I think that means they should have, even if it was just kind of on a surface level, said, okay, so this guy was convicted of a terrible crime. We disavow him, and what we're going to do now is have a look at what he wrote,
review it,
and make sure that there's no problems with it. And I'm sure they did do that. I would imagine they did. I would imagine as soon as that came out, they said, all right, well, let's make sure that, there's no issues with this curriculum that he wrote. I think that they should have made it very clear that that's what they were doing, just from an optics perspective, surely. And so with regard to the recent developments, the motion put forth by Tanya Granite-Gallen was for the PC party to not recognize gender identity or gender identity theory specifically. So it's important to know that is not going to become PC party policy
It very well
necessarily.
could.
It could.
But aren't they voting on it this weekend now?
It got
No,
moved,
so
it moved forward.
Her motion
to be
already
debated.
moved forward,
Yeah.
but this wasn't a policy convention. This wasn't a convention deciding what PC policy would be. This was
it just
deciding.
okay.
Well, this was deciding what would move forward to the policy convention.
Okay,
The
so
policy-
this is proposals
Yeah.
for
So
the
then
policy
next time
convention.
they're gonna vote on that then.
Yeah, they're gonna vote on it in I think 3 years.
Okay.
That doesn't make it okay though.
Yeah, I know, but the other thing is that
it
it's a
still
very.
makes it, the language is dangerous.
It's going to be a very different voter base.
Is it though?
Well, yes, because the people who are allowed to vote in what happened on the weekend is a much, much smaller group than the people who will be allowed to vote in the policy convention.
Okay, but Okay, how did this resolution get moved forward? There was a vote to move it forward?
Yes.
Okay. The same group of people that voted to move this forward are going to vote in 3 years?
Well, like more people will be allowed to vote. This is only like a select group of people.
Okay.
It's not small per se. It's like a couple maybe not a couple hundred. I don't know how many people actually.
But
I wasn't able to make it.
But the concern is like
it's a significantly
the
smaller
concern
group.
is that
there's gonna be more like-minded people that are gonna be voting on that issue.
This is what is becoming of conservatism in Canada. Like now under the United Conservative Party in Alberta, parents need to be informed if their school is attending a gay straight alliance school. This language is debilitating to the
like it's making it seem like it's a problem, right? Doesn't it make it seem like
it seems like we learn theory all the time in schools, so long as it fits the dominant narratives. Like this is how we learn about evolution theory. We learn about Marxism, socialism, conservatism. We learn about it all. We this is not anything to do with well, it's not really a vote. It's not really policy. It's the language. It's that there are people that have very high influence in our education system to remove the language for those non-gender binary students or gay students or transgender students or any members from the LGBTQ plus population, to remove the language that can help them figure out their identity and alienate them from our education system and just make them suffer. That's it.
I just think that's
all
the problem.
This is doing. It's a problem because this is just evidence. It's evidence of what is becoming of right-wing politics in Canada, and that an issue of identity is becoming politicized. Whether you are, I don't care where you sit on the political spectrum, these people exist.
Exactly.
And they will not go away. This is not a fad.
It's a matter of respect, though. That's what it is.
It's dignity. If you learn more about sex ed, your kid isn't going to turn gay. This isn't how it works. These people have their identities. These are how, this is it. This is it. This is how they exist. And we are removing their space to exist with toxic language like this. And I got a comment on the feed that someone said that when you called the gender stuff mumbo jumbo, that it wasn't disrespectful. It is disrespectful. It is disrespectful.
I can apologize for sure. I can say it's mumbo jumbo.
It is disrespectful to call it mumbo jumbo. I know you're not homophobic.
No, it's not.
We know what he meant. We know he wasn't using mumbo jumbo as a synonym
even
for
you,
nonsense.
you're saying like LGBTQ, IAAACP. It's there's so many stuff like that to talk about. But it's like
I think what he was trying to get.
If I just mentioned those first three stuff, you already know what I'm talking about, though, and I just like to use it as a conversation piece and stuff like that.
It can come across as disrespectful.
I get that.
That's all it is.
Yeah, and I get that. And if I don't mind saying sorry about that stuff, but like at the end of the day, I'm 100% in support of like keeping the sex ed curriculum and stuff like that, because the goal of government is to, like, at least in the educational system, is to educate the masses, like our children. And if a child isn't being educated on this stuff, then you're just setting themselves up for failure and stuff like that. And like the worst concern also is like if like this education isn't going to be streamlined to the children, like you're literally just going to be alienating trans people, you're going to be alienating gender neutral people, and they're going to be alienating all of these different marginalized groups to a formal, like they're going to have increased forms of depression and mental health problems and stuff like that.
Suicide rates are going high.
That's the main thing right now, and no one wants to talk about that.
Self-harm rates are going
Self-harm
high.
rates for transgender people is like through the roof.
But do you think it's the role of the government to educate people, or do you think parents should be allowed?
It's the role of the government. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh shit.
I was lucky enough that I like grew up in a very open household in terms of like the conversations that you have around sexuality and gender. And right away when I had questions, my parents were open to answering them, and I was in in that sense, a very privileged position that my parents didn't hide anything from me. My dad took me to the Pride Parade when I was like 4 or something. And I've been going to the Pride Parade with him forever. Like it's a
good time.
Yeah. So there's been a very open, and when I was like, where do babies come from? My parents were like, okay, let's sit down and have a talk. And I was very lucky, but that's very rare because I live in a house with, at Mac, I live with 5 other girls, who didn't, at least some of them didn't even have that conversation, didn't have the conversation about where babies came from.
And they're learning about it at such a older age. When
and I know I could be wrong, but I believe my dad's mother, he tells me stories about how, she was like already menstruating and didn't actually totally understand what sex was yet. Like, and it doesn't,
That's so concerning.
No,
That's
it's
so
concerning because
concerning.
I don't think that I don't think that parents are necessarily going to teach their children. And yes, parents are gonna try to control what their children see, and the information that they take in and whatever. I mean, all parents do it. I wasn't allowed to watch Family Guy. Parents will hide things from you, but when it comes to they can't. It shouldn't be left to the parents to teach their kids about sex because they're going to leave out.
They're going to do a shitty job.
They're going to do a shitty job, and they're going to leave a lot of things out. There's going to be things that aren't going to be told. And a kid could go to their parents asking about what sex was, and that child could also maybe be gay. They could be trans, and sex is going to be different to them. And you can't depend on parents who are going to pick and choose what they share to be the educators, because they're going to educate by their own book when that's not the reality.
So what would you say to parents that, again, I'm on no side of this,
Yeah.
but what would you say to parents who say, I know what's best for my kid, I'm going to educate them the way I want, I don't want them in school that way, because that's happened in the news. Parents were pulling their kids out of school to avoid being taught something. Yeah. How would you change those views?
I would say there needs to be a campaign for that, though. People need to be educated on that, right?
Well, the thing is, if you don't want your kids to learn about what the real world is, I'm not going to swear right now, homeschool them. I don't know. But...
Great point.
That could be an option, yeah.
No, but seriously, you have your child in public school, meaning a child from every walk of life is going to be in that school.
I think it's a very good point.
And if you're scared about them learning what they're surrounded by,
homeschool them.
Fucking homeschool them. Yeah. I'm sorry, but you can't hide them from everything forever. And if you want to, homeschool them and keep them locked in a cage. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not realistic.
I'm a big advocate of homeschooling, actually.
Really?
I think most people should do it, actually, but I also recognize that it's not practical for most people.
It's not feasible, yeah.
For socializing, at least, right?
I mean, that's the other thing, is I think that there was a time not too long ago where socializing wasn't an issue in that regard. That's the first question that always comes up whenever they find out somebody was homeschooled, is how'd you make friends? And they make friends just fine, at least in my experience. Mm-hmm. But I also recognize that in the world we live in today, especially in Toronto, where we're living somewhere and in a society that's so atomized that it's not necessarily going to be easy to socialize when you're homeschooled. And that, you've got double parent working households. I recognize that homeschooling is not practical. At least not for everybody. And that's fine.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because just as you said that, Samuel commented, not everyone can homeschool. That's coming from a very privileged position that assumes most families can survive on a single income.
Wait, is that targeted towards what I said?
I would guess.
Okay, so
ding ding ding.
The gloves are coming off.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I know a lot of people, every time I come on, people have something to say.
No, that's good. That means we're doing something right. Go ahead, Christina, defend yourself. Defend your point of view.
I need to totally defend myself.
Not even defend, but fight back. Let's go.
Yeah. So I think, and if I worded that incorrectly, I think that was more of just my aggressive take on it, and
it's passion. That's what it is.
It's passion,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not, and it's also, it is unfair of me to say homeschool your kid. If that's how you feel, because maybe you're not in the position to do that. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, if your child is in public school, they're going to have to learn about the public and where, and you know what I, no, but you're in a public school, you are going to have every single child that you could possibly think of in that school.
So many demographics.
Yep. Rich, poor, any color, any gender, any sexuality. You don't get to choose. All the kids are thrown into one place. Yep. So your kid is going to have to learn about who's around them. Mm-hmm. And who they are even. So I'm not saying, and yeah, it's unfair. You can't always homeschool your kids. That's just my like aggressive take on it. Is if you're that upset about it, then take some other kind of measure, because unfortunately, like, things are, it's not even unfortunate. It's just things are going to change forever. What are, if any of your parents went to public school, what they learned in public school at the time is not what we learn in public school now.
My teachers used to say the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah, what I learned in school is not what my sister is learning, or what, and we're only a 4-year age gap, and her sex ed curriculum was different than my sex ed curriculum.
Like, were they teaching her all this new stuff then?
They were. I don't think she would have been too old for like the implementation of,
because there's probably a grade 9 class or something, right?
Yeah. You know what? She might have been the first year that they did that.
She's younger?
She's younger than me. She's 4 years younger than me. So she would have been in grade 9 and she would have been finishing grade 9 in 2015. So she might have just missed that new sex ed curriculum. But maybe not, because
sex ed ends at grade 9, right?
Yeah.
That's something I do take issue with. I think it needs to go till
I think so too.
Higher, right?
Yeah, I think we do sex ed wrong in a lot of ways. I don't think that the things that were being targeted by the PC party were the issues. Maybe to an extent, but not really. I liked Christine Elliott's take on it generally, is that it's largely fine. There's no like problems with the content of
Christine Elliott just wanted to leave it as it is.
Well, no, she wanted to review the age appropriateness of things, which I agree with, and I think that sex ed should extend into high school, maybe not all the way through high school, and that
10 or
certain
11,
things can be left till later. But one thing that's really interesting, and if somebody wants to find it, my phone's not working for me right now, or it's working, but it's just very slow. It's on the front page of Reddit right now. It's so they're talking about refusal training. And how great of an effect that's had.
What's
on
refusal training?
Refusal training is learning how to say no.
R/science?
Okay, my gosh. I'm sorry.
Or R/teaching.
Did anyone see what Sam commented?
No, I can't load any of the
comments. Well, so he just goes, he tells me how totalitarian of me. What a disgusting view.
Oh, that wasn't to you.
That was to me.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that was not to you either. That was to me saying, what do you say to parents that think this way?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was because of the mumbo jumbo stuff.
I thought he was telling me my view was disgusting and I was about to spit some fire.
No, Sam, you're good. You're good, Sam.
Okay, just checking.
Wait, what was he responding?
He was like, why can't parents decide what their children see? How totalitarian, what a disgusting view.
I don't understand what he's replying to.
I think he was replying to what I said when he said how totalitarian.
He'll clear it up.
What a disgusting view. Either way, if that is directed at me, it's not a disgusting view, because maybe I think your view is disgusting. But no, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But don't come for me. I don't know. Like, I'm just making a point that we need to
Don't at me.
Don't at me. We need to acknowledge that our world is different, and that's not a matter of being left or right. That has nothing to do with politics. All it means is we live in a different world, and you need to learn what is in the world that you are in. Like,
you're not always going to get your way.
No, and that's the other thing.
Looking at the camera.
That's the other thing. But I just like. I have a lot to say about this topic.
That's okay. Keep going.
I can actually buffet you, because I'm as conservative as they come, but I do think that the state should have a big responsibility in teaching kids because of
me too.
Because of 2000, because of the internet.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to bring up. We're on the same wavelength here.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, so it's the internet generation, and everyone has a wealth of information on their fingertips. What I think me and Marshall used to be as naive as in 18 and 19, you can see smart aleck people 13 or 14 years old. They know all this stuff already, and they didn't take a sex ed curriculum
or
to teach
they
that.
know a warped version of it, which is why you said smart aleck. I think that's a great term to use, because they may have a wealth of knowledge, or at least a wealth of information about these things that we
but from like only one particular side.
But they could be totally off kilter with that information could be totally wrong.
Parents aren't well equipped because they come from a different time.
But I think parents just fear what they don't understand, though. That's exactly what it is.
I think that's with everybody, though. Everybody fears what they don't
not
understand.
everybody.
But see,
I think it is natural. I'm not saying everybody
to
fears
fear
what they
the
don't understand.
unknown is natural.
Yeah, that's what I'm
It is natural.
Yeah.
No, but like if someone actually took the time to meet someone who's trans or something like that, like or meet someone who's suffering from gender dysphoria or like just
it shouldn't get to that.
That's a
though.
whole different
It
topic,
shouldn't
right?
get to that,
no
though.
one they're just
Get to what?
people. Like
it shouldn't get to having to be invested in something to care about it. You can't be anti-black your whole life, meet a black person you like, and then be like, oh yeah, all that anti-black stuff. Oh, I was
I would
wrong
imagine
for
it's
that.
easier to be though.
It's definitely easier to be, but it's a cop-out. It's a cop-out for your problematic views. Once you're invested in someone, if you meet a friend and they're like, by the way, I identify as genderqueer, and then you're like, oh, now I support genderqueer identity and the non-gender binary. To be invested in that is a cop-out for me. Or
the
wouldn't
notion
that
that
be
you would
like
stop being
betterment?
friends with someone because they like identify.
yeah,
like,
exactly.
If I met
Because you're
someone,
confronted with your problematic views, because at that point you can't stop and be like, oh, I don't want to be friends
If
with
I
this
met-
person
but
because
isn't
they're
that- wouldn't you
non-gender
if I met
binary.
this person and they're
wouldn't-
trans,
but-
I wouldn't give a shit. Like,
Yeah, but
wouldn't-
that's you.
But wouldn't you say that if that is the case, if for some reason somebody is racist and they think, oh, I don't like black people, and then they meet a black person, they're like, I like black people, isn't that in a sense a betterment of society? Rather than that person
but he shouldn't have those
continuing-
views in the first place.
No,
though.
for sure.
That's how I
For
see
sure.
it.
Yeah.
That's
He
how I
shouldn't
see it.
No,
No,
they
so-
shouldn't. They shouldn't. I'm not saying they
sh-
should have those views.
Yeah.
I'm saying if their views change because of that, isn't that
Those kinds of views
better?
are inevitable too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's true.
unfortunately people are going to think that way.
Yeah.
And even though this person shouldn't think that way, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I have to agree with Elliot is that's a reflection of the kind of society we live in. Like if you can change your mind about how you feel about race or gender, that's not a bad thing, and that doesn't even mean that you're ignorant. That means that you're listening and you're changing your mind based on what you you learn.
I completely agree, and when it comes to, let's say somebody doesn't like Japanese people because they're a World War II vet. Let's just say.
Yeah.
Oh, like Roger Sterling.
I'm not trying to say it's okay to dislike Japanese people just because you're a World War II vet, but I think that people can be so aggressive towards people who hold certain views, and to an extent, you're well within your rights to be aggressive towards certain things.
Yeah.
But I think when you have to take into account that people are products of their environment, and some people don't know anything else, right? And so
I guess
I'm
that's
not trying
me
to
coming
say-
in
So
with
then
my
the
own
perfect
ignorance.
solution is that when they go to school, they learn about it.
and I'm not trying to say
Like-
forgive people. Oh, maybe, but I'm not trying to say you have to be okay with their views.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say that it's not productive or conducive to things changing. To go and shame them for it.
Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah, I think you can be not okay with something and just respect them as a person. You can just like, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it depends on how bad how much you disagree with their views. Like if like I'm Jewish, if I'm friends with somebody who's like obviously I wouldn't be friends with them. But if somebody's like, listen, I hate Jews, but
I have
you're
a
a cool
bit of
person.
confession. Oh, yeah, sorry.
I knew it. If somebody says that to me, like I think you can just kind of. Tell them confront them about it, right? Not necessarily.
You gotta be able to
completely
call them out
shame
on it, though.
Yeah. So I think
don't
it
know.
depends.
I have an issue with people that once they become suddenly invested in something, their views change. I think their views.
Why do you have an issue with that?
I'm getting into
Okay.
it. I think their views should change from education.
yeah.
They could come in and they could, if they sit in a classroom and they learn about the non-gender binary and they're like, you know what, my obsession with the gender binary was wrong, and then they sort of do that. But if they meet someone and they go into that relationship and they're like, oh man, I really like this person, and then they're like, hey, by the way, I don't identify with the gender binary, and then that's the moment that their deconstruction of their obsession with the gender binary begins. I have a little bit of a problem with that. The result at the end of the day is a betterment in society.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit, it's wrong to me in some ways.
But do you believe that in saying that kind of states that the government or the public school system is the best teacher, right? What if it's better if somebody learns on a personal level? Because I feel, again, I don't.
But no,
agree with
because
those
everyone's
views.
gonna have their subjective view on their.
No,
on
but
their
I'm
thing.
saying like a personal connection to the situation
Yeah.
goes a long way. So I don't.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out why there's such a big problem with it.
Yeah.
Because again, it is for the betterment of society, whether that person learns through the school system or through a friend. I just wanna know more. About
when we're
why.
born, we're a blank slate. We're a tabula rasa, and you may not have the
I remember first year using those
privilege
terms.
of being surrounded by influences that guide you towards a path of tolerance and of respect. And I think that it may take some real picking at, some real cracking to change that. And it's not to say that if somebody is born into a family of hateful people and they're brought up like that, is that on the person who that's all they know, or is that on the people who taught them that?
Yeah. The bottom line for me is that if your views change because you have a personal investment in them, it comes from a selfish place.
That's true.
Not from the betterment of the world.
Big facts.
I can see that.
But for me, I remember when we started talking about trigger warnings very early on in the show.
Oh yeah.
And we were very bothered, including me. We were all very bothered by the idea of trigger warnings. Look at what we're turning into, a bunch of snowflakes. People should just sit through it and stomach it. But trigger warnings are now here. We have one on the show, and we all didn't die. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
But
for us to be we're never gonna do trigger warnings, and we're never gonna
we were educated on what it means to have a trigger warning and how it might not benefit us, but it'll benefit so many other people.
Yeah.
When we talk about, I'm not done yet. Hold on. When we talk about sensitive topics, and they're here and we survived. But when we talk about the gender identity spectrum and the gender and different identities of the LGBTQ plus community, and then as soon as people have discomfort with them, we stop teaching them entirely before we assess what it means, there's a problem.
Exactly.
So
I was just gonna say that I think that it's just the terminology, because when we say viewer discretion is advised, every single television show does that. I think it's just the word trigger warning that had a lot of people I don't know. I think again, if the people just need to realize it's the terminology. Again, I still kind of have an issue with it, but I get where.
And I think that there
from.
are very valid issues with it. I don't think there's anything wrong inherently with trigger warnings at all. And I believe. Geez, how long ago was this when we talked about this on the show?
This was
20
early.
episodes.
I feel like
30
I
episodes.
feel like I said the same thing, if I'm remembering correctly. It's not about the trigger warning itself. It's about kind of the culture that produces the obsessive use of trigger warnings and the not being able to see anything. Trigger warning for things like let's just say a content warning, which I think was the terminology that we had talked about, was
a lot
much better term. Let's say you have content warnings for violence, for sexual assault, for
just language.
For language even, yeah, sure. But when it gets to things like, content warning, we're about to have a discussion that might be marginally uncomfortable. I think of, for example, the situation at Wilfrid Laurier University with Lindsay Shepard showing the Jordan Peterson video. That is what I take issue with. The fact that was such a problem, her showing that video, when it really in no way should have been.
I think it's just the oversensitization of people, and they need to grow a thicker skin. And I think this goes back to the sex ed curricula, because you're gonna be in an uncomfortable situation at some point in your life, and sometimes you just have to deal with it. There are times when you can speak up. There are times when you can't. Obviously, it's courteous to let people know about some material that might be concerning. For example, like our show, we always make sure that people know.
And I think there's also just a difference between viewers' discretion and trigger warning. There's it's very different language, right? Like saying a trigger warning is saying what I'm about to show you might offend you and might upset you, and it's about feelings. Whereas viewer discretion is advised. It's just kind of oh, by the way, we might talk about some things that you don't want to necessarily tune into. Whereas,
but are those functionally different?
I don't think so.
I kind of just said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But I when I think about it, for me, if I'm watching a show and it says viewer discretion, that to me is if there's children in the room, they might not want to. You might not want them here. Or, but trigger warning is basically saying you might be too weak to consume this content.
I just want to mention I kind of have
I'm
like
not
a
saying
little bit,
weak. I'm not saying
No, I don't have a problem with that.
I know, but Adam's doing the and Adam. Oh, Adam. Okay.
What did I do?
No, you did a very specific.
I didn't say anything.
You
No.
made a noise of disapproval. You did
When I say listen.
You did the Marge Simpson noise.
Listen, when I say weakness, I don't mean that people who might be triggered by something are weak. I think it's just kind of telling them. Well, I just said it, but I think I think the way that
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at myself.
Oh no! What I'm trying to say is just that one is kind of telling somebody that they're not strong enough, and the other one is. Never mind.
Well,
I just wanted
have
to
discretion.
I
You know?
just want to mention, like, in regards to what you said, it's kind of I have a little problem with that, just because, for example, when they show a graphic video on the news, coming from a media perspective, they always say, like, this might be,
disturbing to some
viewers. So that kind of sounds like what you were saying, in the sense of, like, you might not be able to handle this. I wouldn't necessarily, like, would you consider that a trigger warning?
Oh,
saying
yeah.
that on the
I think that's exactly what it is.
It is exactly.
That's what it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Fair.
And I think that's fine. I wouldn't want them to stop doing that.
Yeah, Christina, you were actually called out.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
I know. She said still waiting for her to spit fire because I don't think she can. No. The thing is, like, these comments, the only reason I responded is because somebody said them first. And to be quite honest with you, it's immature. And but he said something that upset me, and I said
this is a different person.
No, I know. It's his girlfriend, though. I did my research.
Was not aware, my bad.
That was quick research.
No. I'm telling you, us ladies, we are FBI agents. But I don't need to interact with that. It's also rude. Like, I'm here talking, and I'm here to share an opinion because we all have differing opinions. And guess what? I'm here to give mine. None of your
Do it. Come
Do
on.
it. It's okay. This is the internet. You can swear.
Listen.
Yeah, I swear every now and
She
then.
doesn't believe in
Linda,
me.
listen.
Linda. No, she.
You're calling her out?
No. Her name's not Linda. Just a
Her
vine.
name's
Linda,
Muriel
listen,
or
Linda.
something. I don't know. Okay. All I'm saying is I have a different view, and I am here to contribute my differing view.
I just wanna make the
Don't
point
be an
happen.
idiot. Okay.
And we appreciate you being here and sharing your view.
Thank you.
That's the point of this show.
Exactly.
So
Are we keeping up with the?
No. What? Sorry.
Are we keeping up with the comments though? I feel naked.
I can
without
go back
my
on that
live
if you
stream.
want.
Oh no, we're keeping it.
We're keeping up.
We're keeping up.
just kind of.
Yeah, they still aren't loading.
Wait,
for
so
me.
is this Moralia girl with no? Is that what it is? No.
It's
I don't
not.
know.
It's not even an issue. It's a bit upsetting, but whatever.
Yeah, it's okay.
People have different opinions, and if you want to fight me on it, fucking fight me on it.
Ooh, there it is.
I think the fact that we are getting comments that disagree with us means that you're doing a good job.
And it's also a good thing to disagree.
I also appreciate that we're swearing a lot more. It's fucking brilliant.
Sorry, I dropped.
No.
My
Do it.
boyfriend
No,
already
encourage
texted
it.
me going.
I do it the most out of everyone here, and like I feel like I don't do it enough. That's the
Shout out
problem.
to Theodore for
Guys, can we
watching.
get a trigger
shout
warning?
out to Theodore.
Guys, can we get a trigger warning? I think Christina might be triggering for a lot of people.
Oh
Right.
yeah, trigger warning.
Trigger warning: independent woman is expressing herself freely.
The one woman on the show is a problem.
Daniel, you had a point that you wanted to make.
I would just think like it's actually necessary for trigger warnings to some degree. Like I think like it's more because like we need to be having a change of culture with our mental health discussions and stuff like that. Because I think the idea for me, from my understanding of why we actually should justify trigger warnings, is because of the psychological impact that someone can have when they hear a traumatizing story. Because it's more of like a mental thing. Like if someone gets triggered, like let's say like. I guess I will do it like trigger warning if we talk about rape or something like that. It's like
we talked about it. We taught rape culture. We didn't give a trigger warning. We just gave the standard viewer discretion's advice.
Right.
Christina was on that episode.
Right. But even if I were just to start talking about rape, or if I talked about a personal experience that I had or someone else experienced, and then what they told me and stuff like that, I would be like for some people, it would just like they could potentially be reliving the exact moment that they have and stuff like that. And I think like if there's something that I can do personally to prevent like a marginalized person from like reliving those experiences, then I think that's appropriate and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just courteous in some aspects, and in some aspects, it's simply about making sure that people are able.
I think there's a fine line, though, right?
Have the conversations.
Yeah.
And the one problem, and this isn't, I'm not trying to say that this is the greater trend, but it happens, is when there's this notion that these things shouldn't be talked about at all, or shouldn't be talked about
That's
by certain
ridiculous.
people,
That's absolutely
or
ridiculous.
shouldn't be talked about from certain perspectives. As we saw at Wilfrid Laurier.
Would you say that just because you're a free speech absolutionist?
No one is that.
No, I would say...
Marshall has said that he is a free... Haven't you?
I mean, opinions can change over time.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that those two issues are necessarily inextricably linked. I just think that it's silly to say that certain issues shouldn't be talked about. Is it a free speech thing? And I guess in some ways, yeah. But I just think it's not conducive to learning to say that, to kind of prohibit certain issues from discussion.
On the topic of trigger warnings, what do you guys draw the line at? Like, what is considered triggering?
That's what I'm wondering. That's kind of what
I don't know. I've
seen con warnings for escalators, which somebody pointed
How
out.
do you
that
have a trigger warning for an escalator?
Well, some
Maybe
people are very scared of them.
There was a traumatizing event that happened on a...
Yeah, no, but there were people that have fallen in, their hair gets into the... Yeah, no.
I've seen...
I'm good.
I don't know if you saw... It was recently... There was this video, it was going viral, of some... It's probably on Daily Mail, because, credible news source. And it was this escalator that just, like, at the bottom, like, it just... Some sort of malfunction, and it was just, like... this mountain of people, like you know what it was? It was going so fast that it wasn't stopping.
Yeah.
Like in a
If
metro
I
or
was
something.
in that situation, I would never want to look at an escalator again.
Shoelaces
I
get
get
caught
that.
in it.
I've had shoelaces caught.
It's scary. But I think that it's important to remember sort of a brief origin of trigger warnings, where we talked a lot about veterans, and everybody is very comfortable in talking about veteran PTSD and shell shock, and the homeless rates of veterans, and how
PTSD is so much more broader now. Like
their PTSD isn't addressed, and how we need to work harder on and there was there's always a protest every Victoria Day or Canada Day to not have fireworks. Well, what about the vets? What about the vets? And then we start talking about PTSD warnings and trigger warnings for survivors of sexual assault and abuse and other things. Yeah. And then we're like, oh no, but they should, in order to move on, in order to, and we've had commentators on this show to be like, the best way to move on is to confront it. And why are we so quick to, not we as in
like to brush it under the rug? Like
that.
Why
are we so quick to be like, oh hush hush, they can handle it.
Well,
and then for the veterans, we're so protective.
Well, what do you make of the protests regarding the fireworks?
I see the argument for them.
Too. Yeah, I see the argument.
Yeah.
I think for me at least, I would apply the same standard for veterans that I apply to anybody who's been through traumatic experience. Okay. We're not going to stop having fireworks, and I think that fireworks. Well, I know that fireworks can be an issue for people who have PTSD from war. We don't need to stop having fireworks, and I don't think that's something that's going to help out people with PTSD. Are we going to... Because at that point, it's like we can't pretend that fireworks don't exist. We have to acknowledge that there are going to be loud noises and flashes from other things that might not be fireworks. And so... to completely shield people from anything that might be triggering, when let's just say we're talking about PTSD specifically, it's not about me having a lack of sympathy for people. It's about the fact that it's not going to help them. It's just kind of it's very much a Band-Aid solution.
There were some communities in the United States that if they have veterans that lived on their block, they would do fireworks somewhere else.
Yeah,
if they knew that.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing with trigger warnings. Before with the internet. As Hamza mentioned, with the internet and how much exposure you have, you can be scrolling and see some messed up stuff on any timeline, feed, whatever. So
Reddit,
before things start, Reddit's just fucked up in general.
Yeah.
4chan.
But 4chan, don't even get me started on 4chan. But like, if you're on Facebook and you're scrolling and you're seeing, let's say, people buried in rubble in the Gaza conflict. Before, there's a little thing where it's like, there is some disturbing content, click to view.
And that's nice.
And that's great.
Yeah.
So I think
that's
that...
on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
That's on Facebook. Well, now Facebook owns
too.
everything.
And it goes, and then
Yeah,
you
but
have the
Instagram
option
has like
to
the
watch
sensible
or not.
content thing.
Yeah.
You have to click again before you
Twitter
actually
has
watch
its
it.
own thing.
Yeah.
I think that, to respond to Hamza's point, I think that there is really no line It's not like this is admissible versus that isn't admissible. This deserves a warning versus that doesn't deserve a warning. And I think that it's an ever-changing thing. If something becomes uncomfortable to a certain group of people, then it'll be applied and sort of the blanket grows. So I think that that's where I stand.
Yeah, and I mean, lots of different things can be uncomfortable for lots of different people. I don't think a sensitive image wall is necessary for, let's say, spiders. I'm sure lots of people are very scared of spiders, but I would, at that point, it's like it's spiders, it's escalators. Are you going to have a wall on every single post on Instagram?
Yeah.
At that point, and so if something like
it's up to the general public. I think.
And I think so. And I guess that's what it has to be. Is if gore is disturbing to significant amounts of people.
Yeah.
So block
even
that
if you
out, of
aren't,
course.
even if you don't have some experience.
Exactly.
Even
to
if you're not squeamish.
Yeah.
So excellent discussion. One question for you all. We can either stick, because we got like 15 minutes left in the show, 10 minutes left to really discuss either our third topic or continue on this discussion.
What's the third topic?
The third topic is Canada in 2019.
I feel like we could have a quick chat about that.
Yeah, I'm a little bit exhausted from this.
Yeah,
me too.
We went really in depth in this.
I think that was a great productive discussion. So then, without further ado, topic number 3, Canada in 2019. So here in Canada, nationwide, the federal elections are less than a year away. Will we be seeing another Trudeau victory or a sheer hit and miss for Justin? Let's find out.
That was a funny joke.
Thank you. I was up for 2 nights writing that.
I can tell.
I can tell.
So I'm gonna start with you, Hamza. Actually, before I do, Christina, I just want to point out my dad texted me and he said you're very feisty in a good way.
Oh,
in a good way.
Sorry.
So that's a good thing. I'm very happy about that.
Okay.
Which is a good thing. So, to the questions, Hamza, let's start with you. What are the biggest issues for voters come 2019?
Biggest issues for voters would be, well, I think pot is taken care of, so nobody's going to care about that. So social health care is on the line, education, defense spending, and most importantly, immigration. That's the key takeaway. That's how people win. And as much as any other side would like to take the moral high ground, it's all going to be on identity politics. It's all who can just take in the identity groups. It's like the Chinese or the Muslim vote or the Sikh vote. It's all going to be on that.
I'm inclined to agree there.
Yeah, it's
as far as outcome.
Trudeau's going to win.
Yes, we will see another Liberal victory.
Really?
I would put money on that.
I don't know.
I think Scheer has a shot. I just think it's because
I think he's not going to get a majority, but I think that he has a shot.
I definitely think Liberals are going to lose. I think if Andrew Scheer gets enough votes and can maybe a scandal happens to Trudeau, because God knows that might happen. But I think I just think the comment it's funny enough. I went to go visit my ex-girlfriend's parents. I'm very cool with them and stuff like that. So just catching up with them. I haven't seen them in a while. But as soon as I walk in, dad, he's putting on CNN and we're talking about the caravan and stuff like that. But he's oh, what do you think about all the Trump stuff and everything in general? And I literally just explained it in this way. It's the world is just shifting right now to the biggest wave possible of conservatism and populism that's happening right now. So I'm just if USA is doing this, Brazil is doing this, Hungary is doing this, Philippines is doing this. What other countries are doing this?
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Because it's precisely what Hamza said, exactly about immigration and stuff like that. Everyone's so concerned about immigration, and it's everyone now has this nationalistic idea of protecting their sovereignty and stuff like that, and I think also just the idea of radical Islamic terrorism was people are just going to find it to be a very significant threat, and I think that's going to be why people want to advocate for stricter immigration laws and stuff like that.
And how do you think Trudeau has handled immigration?
I don't think he's being responsible and stuff. I don't know, because it's everyone that's crossing the U.S. border into Canada right now and they're just seeking asylum. It's just putting a strain on our border defense on our border patrol services, and it's just putting a strain on our healthcare system. It's putting a strain on our taxes. And at the end of the day, Canadians are suffering to pay.
It's not even a strain. The RCMP just let them in.
They get arrested when they come in.
They get arrested,
but then they claim asylum, and then
they
appeal for asylum.
They claim asylum, but while the 1 or 2 years it takes to process them,
5 to 10.
5 to 10. Wow. they are still afforded some welfare benefits while they're being processed.
But see, I don't think they should be on welfare and stuff like that. If they're gonna come here and they're gonna claim asylum, they need to be properly contributing to our country. I'm not saying like they should have no access to. I'm not saying they shouldn't have access to welfare. Maybe in the beginning, but like if they're not actually gonna be able to contribute to society, because if you're gonna abandon your home country, then you need to. I'm not saying assimilate to Canadian culture, but adapt to living in Canadian society. There's a big difference between that.
One problem I take issue with is that a big issue for me generally is homelessness. I don't think enough is being done for the homeless population in Canada, and more is being done for. I understand people, fleeing war and seeking asylum, but if you can't take care of your own, how do you expect to take care of?
We can. We're just not doing it.
How are they fleeing war from the U.S.?
No, not the U.S. But
yeah.
I mean, not from the U.S. I mean from Syria. Listen, I have no problem with taking.
But the same argument is made for like, why are we taking care of our veterans first and stuff like that? At the end of the day, you should be able to do both.
We don't invest in homeless shelters to begin with.
That's my problem.
And it's no. Your problem is that we're divesting from homelessness to cater to
help
the refugees and immigrations.
Yeah.
We're not divesting. We're not investing in general.
That's my problem. I'm saying we should be investing in both.
But the prop. I'm not.
Maybe I didn't phrase it right.
I'm not assuming how you feel about this, but so many people all of a sudden care about homelessness.
I've always cared about that. So
I'm
just be careful about that.
I'm not assuming.
Cared.
I know that you've always cared. You've got a big thing with homeless people, but so many people.
We talked about it on the show. So.
All of a sudden arise as this, mass, support for the homeless in our city and in our country. And why should we be letting in other people before we take care of our own?
I totally agree, and it's not that I don't think that we should be taking care of homeless people. Of course we should, but I do think it is often very dishonest.
Yeah,
and that's I think you can oppose bringing in more refugees and just say that, and I think that there are very valid reasons for it. And I'm not saying, Elliot, I know you do very, very much care for homeless people.
And I didn't mean to comment on you, and I apologize if I directed that towards you. I meant people who say that argument so often in general.
I get that. No, generally, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Again, this is my personal view, is that I've always been very, not to say like I have a big heart, but I do feel for homeless people every time I walk downtown. So that's a big issue for me, and for that not to be taken care of is a problem.
It's all right, boys. This is the episode we air all the dirty laundry out.
But and so I think that when it comes to how Trudeau has handled immigration, I believe that was the question, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Politically, rather poorly. I can tell what he's doing, because when it comes to increasing immigration numbers, there is certainly an electorate that appeals to. It appeals to simultaneously a lot of bleeding heart types, as well as a lot of kind of free market, very capitalistic types. And I think that both of those, electorates are shrinking. I think that people really, and I are kind of getting tired of free market worship. And I'm not trying to say that they're getting tired of free markets. I'm trying that they're getting tired of.
But we idolize it to think as a solution for all of our problems.
Free markets at whatever cost, and I think that these electorates are going to disappear. And when you talk about populism rising all across the world, of course it is, but it's not going to happen here, because look who the Conservative Party elected to lead the party. In 2017, the worst possible option. My goodness.
There's a very popular joke that Andrew Scheer is just liberals in blue.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. And when you look at what's happening across the world,
it's like
when you look at just Brexit happening, when you look at Trump, and I'm not trying to say the ideology is what needs to be copied. But what is it? I guess the vibe is an informal word I can use. How can you look at what's happening across the whole world and possibly think that Scheer is the way to go?
I'm going to go with you on that. I totally don't think he's the right face of the party.
He will never win the CPC election.
I think it's just more of a concern, like a trend that's happening, like a global trend. So if it happens in the U.S., like anything that happens in the U.S., it has a ripple effect on Canada. So maybe not necessarily a Scheer going into power and stuff like that, but like once people like, and it's gonna happen. Once people are sick of Trudeau, we're gonna have like the Conservative government that's gonna have very staunch positions that are gonna be extremely polarizing to what the Liberal government's gonna be proposing over the next 5 years.
It's too late to pivot. The Conservatives at this point cannot remake Scheer. They cannot mold him into a winning candidate.
So maybe not for 2019, but maybe for like
2023.
I was just keeping up with the comments. Daniel comments, it's happening in those countries because there's a choice regarding immigration. Scheer has more or less stayed away from the big questions of immigration, so I don't see him riding the wave in 2019.
Yes, so basically, and I don't think it necessarily has to do with immigration.
Shout out to Ricky. He asked for one. Okay, anyways.
Shout out to Ricky.
Shout out to Ricky. Hashtag 2018.
I don't think it has to necessarily do with immigration. I think that's something that certainly should come up, but it doesn't have to be the main thing. And when it comes to Scheer, his whole marketing campaign is Harper with a smile. But you can't do that because he is not Harper with a smile. You think Harper was elected, well, sorry, I hate to be a hypocrite and use the terminology I make fun of people for. You think the Conservative Party won the 2004 election because of Harper's policies? No, they won it because Harper was extremely accomplished and built the Conservative Party. And made a very functioning party out of a extremely divided movement across Canada. And that was largely his orchestration. And, you know, I'm not trying to say his policies were bad. I truly don't even know what they were in the 2004 election. But he was elected because he had this excellent resume and he was a good politician. Scheer has... I can't say he's got a bad resume.
I hate to be that guy.
Disrespectful.
I hate to be that guy, but it was 2006. I hate to be that
2006,
guy.
okay, thank you.
I hate to be that guy.
Actually,
I'm so sorry.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate
it.
I do appreciate it, actually.
We need fact checkers though.
No, I can't disrespect the office and say that Scheer doesn't have a good resume. Being Speaker of the House, youngest Speaker of the House ever, that's fantastic. But does he have a exemplary resume?
He has a charisma for wet towel.
Yes, he has.
He's a stock photo character.
I know. I thought his charisma was.
NPC. That's what he is.
He's great in question period sometimes, but not good enough.
It just seems like he's forcing it in question period. You know, he's very forcing screw the Liberals.
But so then, because obviously there's problems within the Conservative Party, especially with Maxime Bernier leaving and starting his own party, the People's Party, completely dividing the Conservatives. Does that give the NDP a chance?
I wouldn't say completely.
No, because Jagmeet Singh's the leader.
Yeah, no. I voted for Jagmeet Singh. I am a Jagmeet Singh supporter.
It's okay, man.
I don't regret it. I personally don't regret it because I like him as a person and I like his accomplishments.
Great.
As a face of the party, I don't think that he is electable. I wish he was, but I don't think that with the reality of him being a turbaned Sikh visible minority man, you need Quebec in the sort of first past the post system.
Quebec or everybody else. Right?
Yeah, it's in the first past the post system we have in Canada. You need Quebec or everybody else to win an election, and I also don't think it's the NDP's time. Generally,
Trudeau, it's never been the NDP's time.
I don't think they're ready.
One more election with Jack Layton, they could have done it.
Yeah, I think, and also just because I made the comment on I love Jagmeet Singh, I just wanted to back that up because I know there's some controversy around him. I think
I love him too.
I know. So what I was gonna say is we were talking about how we think the election's gonna go next year, and I don't have a ton of confidence in the Liberals, and the reason I say that is because we saw what we were talking about earlier is that conservatism is kind of taking over. It's making its way back into politics more than, because I think we went through a period of very electing very liberal leaders, and now it's kind of changing all around the board. And we just saw that with the provincial election,
15 years of the Liberals.
Yeah, 15 years of the Liberals, and like it made a quick switch. Yeah, and I think that just kind of speaks to the way that politics is right now.
And New Brunswick, of all places, they're never conservative.
But they're in a minority.
And
now.
I think I don't like Scheer, and I don't think he's a good leader. Jagmeet Singh, I totally admit that I would.
Yeah.
I do think that he could be in a leadership position. I mean, the reason I support him is there's some things he takes a stand on that
no one else will.
And
you know,
the blood ban for me is what did it.
For me, the one thing that I really like that he
ending the blood ban.
Yeah. The one thing that he talks about that I really like is that he talks about we need to start focusing on like the like the opioid crisis, for example. He believes in like decriminalizing all drugs, and I see that as beneficial because we've seen. That, yeah. I think it was it Portugal?
Portugal. Yeah.
It was Portugal decriminalized all drugs, and they saw a huge decline in. I don't know if it was drug use or maybe
drug-related deaths.
Drug-related deaths. So.
But it goes hand in hand. Like, not only did Portugal do that, but I think they also implemented a lot of social programs to help people cope with their addictions and stuff like that.
Well, the social programs were there, but it was harder to get them into it when they were also at the same time criminals.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then there we go.
By them not being criminals, it was a lot easier.
We have a major opioid crisis, and the thing is, you see it wherever you go. But I'm from Hamilton, and it's every single block is somebody on drugs. It's a scary, and we live in Canada, and we're seeing this like really disturbing. I don't want to say trend, but it's a trend happening, and it's disturbing, and this is not the country that this should be happening in, and we have and we need to start focusing on it rather as it being this huge criminal issue. This is a health issue because we don't have millions of criminals in the country. It's millions of drug addicts who are suffering from addiction and from that illness, and we need to start focusing on that.
And then definitely, I mean, the elections will be the decider with with everything else, how we you know what we do as a country.
I just want to say, like, by-elections in between major federal elections are usually a good indicator in how the election's going to go.
And they've been trending liberal.
Yeah. The Conservatives won one back in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord in Quebec. But in the federal election, that was won by about 600 votes. Wow. So it was very close anyway. And
that seat could easily
the red wave momentum kind of came with it. And I think that I don't think Canada's a one-and-done kind of country. I think that we haven't.
We do it until we're sick of them.
Yeah,
right?
we do that. We elect our leaders until we're physically sick of them. Like we happen.
It is the
Stephen
foundation
Harper.
of our country. We are a very reformist country as opposed to a radical.
Scheer is not going to win an election, one, because he looks like boiled rice, and two, because Justin Trudeau is a very charismatic leader,
and he is doing well.
Yeah.
Like from a what do you call it? Approvals.
Yeah, his approval is still around 40%.
He's doing abysmally as prime minister, but he's doing well.
It went pretty far down after the whole India visit, but it's hovered around 40%, which is pretty good a leader.
It is,
into 4 years into his tenure. And I do have to say that the Liberals will have a smaller majority. They won't
it's
have
38 yesterday, so I don't know if that's a big difference. I'm not sure if 2%.
I mean,
it's
to build on that, it's like what is a discerning quality of Scheer? It's like he's big on immigration. He has said on several times like diversity is our strength. He does the same photo ops as Trudeau, so there's no discerning him from Trudeau. Why would people vote for him? And when people are saying like there's a conservative wave coming in Canada, I don't think it is coming. Even with Bernier, that is not going to go anywhere.
And I know we're done here, but I just wanted to say one more thing: is that I see so many people who, right before the leadership election for the CPC, were saying, "Hey, you know what? Maybe I'll vote Conservative in 2019." And then Scheer was elected, and people are going, "Oh no, too right wing," which I just think is where does that come from? In what universe is this guy too right wing? If anything, he's
not right enough.
A neoliberal. Well, I guess that's what it is, maybe. But.
Yeah. And with that, we got to wrap things up. I'm just gonna, because we are over time, unfortunately. But that means we had a good show. My last thing that I want to know is quick answer. Who will you be voting for in 2019? Christina, I'm going to start with you.
I actually don't know yet.
Don't know?
Jagmeet Singh Or
if he still holds his position.
If he still holds his position, and I only say that because I'm doing like a what's it kind of vote, like a
strategic vote.
Strategic vote, because I don't have much faith in Liberals, but we'll see because we still got time. So it very well may be the Liberals.
Fair enough. And Hamza?
Justin Trudeau sent the Conservatives a strong message that Andrew Scheer is not good enough.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay. Adam?
I'm going to vote Justin Trudeau with my nose closed because I don't like him. He's disappointed me. But both Christina and I live in the Don Valley East riding, and that's been Liberal forever, with the exception of 2011. So I think that I'm going to have to... I don't even like my MP, Yasmin Ratansi. I don't like her. But I think I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to do it. And I'm going to hate it, and it's going to suck, but I'm going to do it.
And Daniel?
I would definitely say True Daddy's going to go for the dub in the next election. So, yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
Marshall?
I'll be voting for the People's Party.
Really?
Yep. I will not give my vote to that.
I'm gonna say the People's Party is not gonna go anywhere.
You feel betrayed by the Conservative Party.
I mean,
I think. So. I mean,
Oh yeah. What about you?
I think I'll be voting Conservative just out of instinct.
I'm shocked.
Holy!
Imagine
what? No way.
Yeah. I don't know. Just how it gonna be, but that was our show. That's it. Thank you to everyone that tuned in to our 50th episode special. And thank you to everyone that has supported us throughout our 5 seasons. Season 5 is not over, FYI. We got another episode in 2 days. A big thank you to our guests who were all invited back because of their insight and past appearances on the show. So thank you, Christina.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you to Hamza.
A pleasure.
We really, really appreciate it. We really love having your thoughts on the Raben Report. A brand new episode of the Raben Report will be coming to you in 2 days for our regularly scheduled programming. On behalf of everyone at the Raben Report, thank you and have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.